Now, I promised last week to actually catch you up on just a variety of politicians, PACs, and others that I've caught breaking the law lately, or basically who have been sanctioned or fined for actually breaking the law. Now, there are quite a few that have happened since I did the last video on this subject, and I just can't cover them all, but I'll give you just a few highlights for those who are interested. Now, honestly, this can just be an endless list, but if you go to the link at my We the Govern website in the video description that I've linked down below, you're going to see that I have easily now over 100 politicians, PACs, judges, and others who I've actually caught breaking the law and who've been fined, sued, or they've had to forfeit funds just over the past few years. Now, I've included all source documents for those skeptical of my claims or who just want to learn more. They're all hosted and available for easy downloading, and or you can just review them at my site at We the Governed. Now, in addition to that list, there are almost another 200 on that same page that I've actually also caught and they've been formally sanctioned by the Public Disclosure Commission or the ethics boards over the past few years as well. Now, I don't know anyone else who's actually paid this much attention to the lawbreakers in public office or attention on those who wield influence in our political process. But I'd encourage others, including you, to develop similar habits, and perhaps we'll actually have less law breaking in the future if we keep catching these people. Now, an interesting case, to me anyway, was actually a recent $1,000 fine that was imposed on the Washingtonians Against Discrimination Everywhere PAC, or WADE PAC for short. This is actually their second fine in the last year or so. And this fine was mainly imposed on them for falsifying their officer lists, concealing major contributions to their PAC, concealing legal costs that were donated to their legally dubious PAC, and then other illegal actions that they took. The $1,000 fine was actually imposed back in March, and $950 of it actually was suspended, which is really letting them off easy if they were able to pay at least $50 in 30 days, which they, of course, failed to do. So now they owe the full $1,000 amount fine, plus they still have failed to update their documents. So I think this group has just pushed for some questionable, they had basically originally pushed for questionable initiatives in the past, just a few years ago, but they've mostly just been breaking Washington State's public disclosure laws pretty much every day since then. Then we have another example, which is failed Tacoma Port Commissioner candidate Jeanette Twitty, and she was just fined $200 for attempting to accept thousands of dollars in illegal over-limit anonymous contributions. Now, this was the second time and the second campaign in a row where she committed this exact same violation. Last time I caught her, she received a formal warning notice, and this time she's been upgraded to a small $200 fine. Maybe next time she might try to follow the law, but I'm not really betting on it right now. I also caught a failed Snohomish County Fire Commissioner candidate, Evan Merritt. He was actually forced to forfeit $1,000 in illegal over-limit contributions for his last campaign that they had received actually from the local firefighters union. His name is Evan Merritt. He was actually a failed campaign that for this office. He didn't actually win the race. But after the PDC staff eventually confirmed that he did indeed return the illegal $1,000 over-limit contribution to the firefighters union, the union then decided to, for some reason, to actually keep its receipt of those funds secret. So I just filed a complaint against them now for concealing the receipt of these funds from the public. This union PAC called IAFF Local 2781 PAC, they've actually been formally warned in the past based on one of my earlier complaints last year for their law breaking at that time. So we're going to see if this investigation perhaps helps them maybe follow the law just a little bit more in the future. And then Spokane, the current Spokane City Councilwoman, Betsy Wilkerson, she was actually forced to forfeit $239 in illegal over-limit contributions. And she also received a formal warning letter sanction from the Public Disclosure Commission. But since she always seems to be mired in legal trouble, I'm pretty much sure that this won't be the last that I see of her. Now, speaking of formal warning notices and sanctions, the Franklin County Democrats, the Thurston County Democrats, Kitsap County Democrats, and the Thurston County Democratic Women PACs were all caught breaking a variety of campaign finance laws. Mostly, they just weren't reporting the truth, or they were concealing the truth for extended periods of time, and they were hiding this information from you, the public. Now, they were not alone in this process, of course. Over the past few months, they've actually been joined by the Whitman, the Clallam, the Whatcom, the Skamania, and the Pacific County Democrats as well, who I also caught breaking many of these same laws. Now, for some of these groups, this is the second or third time that I formally caught them breaking the law, maybe in the last 8 years or so. But lessons are rarely learned well for long, and law breaking can become a habit for many of them, of course. So somebody has to actually keep them from straying too far into darkness, and I guess that's my job. Now, if you go to the Public Disclosure Commission website, something that I do encourage every active citizen to do, pdc.wa.gov, you can actually research many of these cases for yourself. There are currently 23 cases that are based on complaints that I have filed, which are currently in the very final stages of investigation into either penalties or final dispensation by the PDC. Now, too many to list at this time, of course, but some of them, like the Question PAC, which was an Eastern Washington PAC, established apparently so that the organizer could call Republicans names a few years ago, and which is actually getting a bit more detailed interest from the PDC in basically a brief enforcement hearing this week. They committed all kinds of violations. Now, there are another 8 or so which are currently still being reviewed, and then another 4 that I just filed over this last weekend. So if you type in just my name in the complainant search box at the PDC website, you're going to see about 759 cases that I've initiated over the past few years. But the PDC does essentially combine some of these complaints against the same violator into single case files. So this actually disguises a bit just how many complaints that I've actually filed in an effort to ensure that our state's campaign finance laws are followed at least just a little bit sometimes. Now, in a future video, I'll discuss some ethics complaints that I'm in the process of drafting right now based on what I believe to be illegal actions taken by some of our more prominent elected officials in our state. And yes, I'm perfectly aware of the limitations of what amounts to a captured administrative procedure process for basically highlighting the wrongdoing of our elected officials. And yes, I know there are many more serious problems out there right now. The grant grifting, the money that always goes missing, and kickbacks to their friends, just to name a few of the more common law-breaking actions that they commit. The challenge, of course, as always, is trying to find anyone who enforces the law. And, of course, anybody who's actually willing to demonstrate that they would ever enforce it if that enforcement meant that they had to investigate their political friends. As A.G. Bob Ferguson has so amply demonstrated, it is easy to not find any law-breaking when you just refuse to look, or if you look the other way and then you just let it happen. I'll also point out that most of our laws have giant get-out-of-jail-free clauses that can be twisted to help political insiders and those who control the special interests avoid most, if not all, legal consequences for their obviously bad or incompetent behavior. This is actually a topic I might like to discuss in a future video as well. But for now, I didn't want you to think that I was sitting back and then not paying any attention. I do get distracted frequently, but when I have more time on my hands, like when my car breaks down on the side of the road or somebody doesn't show up at a scheduled meeting, for example, that often gives me the extra time to catch a few more lawbreakers and give the employees who work at the Public Disclosure Commission just a bit more job security. Everyone needs a good hobby, and I find this to be one of the more productive and interesting ones, so I think it's worth pursuing. Now, if you want to share the joys and wonder of this type of hobby or become a subject matter expert to how to spot local corruption in government, I'm actually happy to compare notes and then maybe help you get to a better spot where you might be able to do this on your own. Over the years, I have helped others, and while this training may make you a bigger cynic about government, after all, the more you know, I think the harder it is to pretend that everything's working just the way you thought it should. At least I can give you some tools that you can actually use to do something about it. And I'll link to some of the more interesting investigations that are ongoing out there right down below if you're interested. They will be linked there in the video description so you can browse, and perhaps some of these can inspire you to help out in your own way. Now, regardless of what type of hobby you have, however, you can only make an impact if you bother to show up. So this is because, of course, the future only belongs to those who show up.